today we are studying Ecclesiastes. I don't typically hear people talk about Ecclesiastes. The only thing that I ever hear people mention is chapter 3. But just these this part here, a time for everything or occasion for everything. I mainly hear people talk about just this part, but I don't know anything about Ecclesiastes. I've never read it. So we're going to be going through this and learning together. So, Ecclesiastes. Strong evidence attests that Ecclesiastes comes from the age of Solomon, 971 BC through 931 BC, and Solomon is traditionally credited as the author. According to Ecclesiastes 1 and 1 and 12, the author was David's son and a king over Israel from Jerusalem. Ecclesiastes 12:9 speaks of the author as a writer of Proverbs, another book credited to Solomon. So there's lots of evidence that says that Solomon wrote it. And from what I have skimmed, Ecclesiastes is written in first person. So I don't know. Ecclesiastes is wisdom literature, meaning it is in the part of the Bible that is especially concerned with helping readers cope with the practical and philosophical issues of life. Books like Proverbs and Ecclesiastes are, in essence, the biblical answer to the search for truths to live by. Proverbs is basic wisdom, giving the reader fundamental principles to live by, while Ecclesiastes is a heavier read. Ecclesiastes engages the weighty but necessary question: does death nullify all purpose and meaning in life? Purpose and message. Ecclesiastes examines major endeavors of life in light of the reality of death. It shows that we and our works are futile, that is, destined to perish, and we must not waste our lives trying to justify our existence with pursuits that ultimately mean nothing. And that's good. That is really good. The book warns specifically about the pursuit of intellectual accomplishments, wealth and luxury, politics and religion. Now, that's really good because a lot of people, for example, people who have like degrees or they have a certain status, feel like they are identified by those things, but you're not. Like, these are not things that you should be trying to pursue to just justify your existence. Your existence should only be justified by the Heavenly Father. Instead of pursuing these purposes, which will not last, because when you die, these things do not matter. Your accomplishments, your wealth and luxury, politics and religion, when we die, these things do not matter. No, God does not care about these things. Ecclesiastes prompts us to do two simple but profound things: enjoy life and fear God. All right, let's jump in. So, unlike the other ones, they typically have like a timeline or a map at the beginning, but this kind of just gives a theme of Ecclesiastes, which the same thing for Psalms and Proverbs, because these aren't necessarily books that are talking about either migration or a time period. It's not a historical book, basically. So now I do, because I have not read Ecclesiastes, and in my perusal, I saw that I was going to need my Holman Illustrated Bible Dictionary. This is linked in the description. And I also have my Strong's Concordance handy. So just in case we need to look up some words and definitions. And I also have my sticky notes, which y'all can also find in the link in the description. So let's get started. The words of the teacher, and that footnote says, or of Koheleth, or of the leader of the assembly. I've never heard this word, so we're going to see if that word is in the dictionary. I don't know. I may need to look in the concordance for that word. Okay. Oh, turned right to it. C. Koheleth. Koheleth. Well, oh, well, I guess I have to. Okay, go back. So it wasn't spelled that way. That's the thing about these things that were translated into English. They just completely change the spellings. Okay. English transliteration of the Hebrew title of Ecclesiastes. Oh, so that's the actual name of this book. Oh. Koheleth is a Hebrew word that is translated as preacher, which is used in these versions, or teacher, which is used in NIV, NRSV, or CSB, because that's the one I'm reading. Speaker. Oh, so these are the words that are used in these different versions of the Bible, but that is what that means. Okay, so we're going to make a note of that on the side. Hopefully, y'all can see. So I'm just going to write the correct spelling of it. So it's the English transliteration. Okay. And it's translated as preacher, teacher, speaker, or philosopher. So the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. So that would give us an indication that this would be Solomon. Absolute futility, says the teacher. Absolute futility. Everything is futile. What does a person gain for all his efforts that he labors at under the sun? So everything that you do, all the hard work that you do, what does that get you? A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Amen. I mean, this is kind of just straightforward. The sun rises and the sun sets. Panting, it hurries back to the place where it rises. Gusting to the south, turning to the north. Turning, turning goes the wind. So basically, the actions of the wind. Creation doing what it's supposed to do. Actions of the sun. So these are things that just happen and nobody can stop them but our Heavenly Father. Things will always continue. It's ever going until the earth ends. All the streams flow to the sea, yet the sea is never full. That's interesting. That is very interesting because if you think about it, like rivers and I wouldn't say lakes because lakes are kind of like, well, it depends. It actually depends on where you live. But all of these smaller bodies of water flow into a larger body of water, but it's like it doesn't flood the earth, right? So when it rains, it's like more water into the water. I don't know. That's very interesting to think about. That's very interesting. To the place where the streams flow, there they flow again. So it's like a fountain. Like if you go to a water fountain, uh, any kind of fountain structure, it's water that's recycled. It's the same water over and over and over and over. Interesting. I have the circle of life, the circle of water. All things or words are wearisome, more than anyone can say. The eye is not satisfied by seeing, or the ear filled with hearing. The whole thing of seeing to believing, or seeing is to believe. Even if you do see something, it's like you still don't believe it. and hearing as well. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. You know, I wonder if when people are saying these little, I don't know, phrases, um, if they're getting that, I've always heard this, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing that God hasn't seen. Or the sun. Can anyone say about anything, look, this is new? There's nothing new that has been created because God created everything. It has already existed in the ages before us. There is no remembrance of those who, or the things that came before, or of those who will come after. There will also be no remembrance by those who follow them. So there's no remembrance of those who came before, so things that came before we were born, and of those who will come after, or the things that are going to come, because I mean, we of course we're not going to know that. There will also be no remembrance by those who follow them. So coming generations or coming things. Interesting. But yeah, this is pretty a straightforward read. And it's like sometimes when you're reading the Bible, I don't know if there's anyone who's like me. I'll be reading and it's like this is a lot of information. I need to do a lot of research. And then you get to books like this, they're just very kind of straightforward. It's kind of like a reprieve, a breath of fresh air, if you will. And these highlighters are also linked in the description below. The limitations of wisdom. I've never thought about there being a limit to wisdom. I wonder if it's like a limit to how much you can know, or like how much you're allowed to know, what you're allowed to know, how much wisdom you can have. I, the teacher, have been or was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my mind to examine and explore through wisdom all that is done under heaven. God has given people, or given the descendants of Adam, this miserable task to keep them occupied. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun and have found everything to be futile, a pursuit of the wind, or a feeding on wind, or an affliction of spirit. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. I, the teacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my mind to examine and explore through wisdom all that is done under heaven. Okay, so we do know that Solomon asked God told Solomon, ask whatever it is you want of me and I will give it to you. And he chose wisdom. So God has given people this miserable task to keep them occupied. What task? I'm a little confused by that. I have seen all things that are done under the sun, have found everything to be futile, a pursuit of the wind. Futile means unproductive. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, see, I have amassed wisdom far beyond all those who were over Jerusalem before me, and my mind has thoroughly grasped or discerned wisdom and knowledge. I applied my mind to know wisdom and knowledge, madness and folly. I learned that this too is the pursuit of the wind. Oh. For with much wisdom is much sorrow. As knowledge increases, grief increases. Ooh, now that's good. So the more you know, that now, okay, I get it. See, that's the thing. When our son is reading and he'll ask questions, I'll tell him, keep reading, just keep reading. And I just kept reading, and now I understand what he's saying. People want wisdom. People, and when he's saying this miserable task to keep them occupied, the task of gaining more wisdom. And the thing is, the more you know, I think the more, when he says knowledge increases, grief increases, the more knowledge that you have of things, I think it gets a little more depressing. It causes a little more grief because of the type of things that you know. So everyone's always chasing wisdom, they're always chasing knowledge to know things, but it's like the more you know, that's not a great thing. It's not a great thing to know absolutely everything. Because when you know absolutely everything, what is there left? Nothing. You have no purpose. Right? That's that is interesting. The limitations of wisdom. So you should not strive to have a lot of wisdom or to know everything. And this is a word for me because that is something that I always pray for is wisdom. And it's like, oh, it's not a good thing to, know everything. I have oil all over my Bible. But that's okay. It means I'm not ashy. I always pray for wisdom. And now I know it's not a good thing to have a whole lot of wisdom. I have amassed wisdom far beyond all those who were over Jerusalem before me. My mind has thoroughly grasped wisdom and knowledge. That has to to have all of that wisdom. And the thing is, the wisdom that he had, I mean, the Queen of Sheba, she traveled thousands of miles to come see Solomon and to see what kind of wisdom that he had. And she was just floored because she thought it was like a hoax or something. But yeah, to have wisdom to know everything about everything, that can't be fun. That cannot be fun. There are things that I would like to just be left to be a surprise. I would not like to know things ahead of time or to know about something before I even get to that point. Um, yeah. The emptiness of pleasure. I said to myself, go ahead, I will test you with pleasure, enjoy what is good. But it turned out to be futile. I said about laughter, it is madness, and about pleasure, what does this accomplish? I explored with my mind the pool of wine on my body. My mind is still guiding me through wisdom, and how to grasp fully until I see what is good for people to do under heaven or the sun during the few days of their lives. And I was reading Psalm 25, and it was talking about how 1,000 years to us can be like a day in heaven, and how he says here during the few days of our lives, because I mean, to God, we don't live that long, right? I mean, we feel like we live, oh, if we live to be like 100 something, that's a long time. That can be like an hour for God. So our time and his time is completely different. And what's interesting, he says the emptiness of pleasure. That's why he had so many wives. That's why he had so many wives. Yes. That's why he had so many. And kept collecting them like trophies or stamps or coins, like collector's items. Um, but laughter, when he says, but I said about laughter, it is madness, and about pleasure, what does this accomplish? I mean, I guess with pleasure, a lot of it has to do with just self. It's kind of selfish. So I understand what he's saying about what does this accomplish, pleasure. But laughter, I guess it could be like people who laugh to keep from crying. I'll make a note of that, but that's the only thing I can think of. Because that is madness, to laugh to keep from crying. I explored with my mind the pool of wine on my body. So did he drink until he got drunk and was trying to figure out what the wine did to his mind? My mind still guiding me with wisdom. So did it not have an effect on his mind? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. The emptiness of possessions. I increased my achievements. Solomon was rich. He had a lot of things, a lot of wives. He had a whole palace. He had a lot of wisdom. He had everything, absolutely everything. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself and planted every kind of fruit tree in them. I constructed reservoirs for myself from which to irrigate a grove of flourishing trees. I acquired male and female servants and had slaves who were born in my house. I also owned livestock, large herds and flocks, more than all who were before me in Jerusalem. I also amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I gathered male and female singers for myself and many concubines. Okay. The delights of men, um, male and male cupbearers and female cupbearers, a cup and cups, or many treasures that people delight in. So these are all the things that he amassed. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also remained with me. All that my eyes desire, I did not deny them. I did not refuse myself any pleasure, for I took pleasure in all my struggles. This was my reward for all my struggles. When I considered all that I had accomplished, all my works that my hands had done, and what I had been labored to achieve, I found everything to be futile in the pursuit of the wind, feeding on wind or an affliction of spirit. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. So this makes me think about, you know how people become rich and they have all this money and they buy all these things, and they have the houses, the cars, the clothes, the jewelry, the women or the men, depending on who they are. They have all these things and they're still not happy. He had all these things and realized that they were pointless. Like, when you die, what are all these things going to matter? What are they going to matter? He had all of this, everything that his eyes desired, he had. He saw a woman, he took her. He saw another woman, he took her. He saw some herds, flocks, he took them. Silver, all that. He had all that he ever wanted, all that he could possibly have. And then you sit and think about it, it's like, it's not worth anything. Still not happy having all these things. So, things and possessions don't make people happy. They go to waste when you die because you can't take them with you. To have everything and still depressed. The relative value of wisdom. Then I turned to consider wisdom, madness, and folly. For what will the king's successor, the man who comes after the king, be like? He, or they, will do what has already been done. And I realize that there is an advantage to wisdom over folly, like the advantage of light over darkness. The wise person has eyes in his head, but the fools walk in darkness. So his successor, the person or people coming after him, he will do what has already been done. So do the same thing, you know. David had a lot of women and things. So Solomon had a lot of women and things. He took after his father. He did exactly what his father did. So it's just kind of like a revolving door, a recurring act. Yet I also knew that one fate comes to them both. So I said to myself, what happens to the fool will also happen to me. Why then have I been overly wise? So the fool dies and he will die. So why does he have all the wisdom? And I said to myself that this is also futile, for just like the fool, there is no lasting remembrance of the wise, since in the days to come both will be forgotten. Exactly like I just said. They die, you know? It is what it is. How is it that the wise person dies just like the fool? Therefore, I hated life because the work that was done under the sun was distressing to me, for everything is futile in a pursuit of the wind. So, even having all that wisdom, what purpose did it serve him? Because when he died, that wisdom's gone. I mean, yeah, he put it in a book, but when he died, the wisdom's gone. The wisdom is gone. So, like you said, for everything is futile in the pursuit of the wind. Everything that we do under the sun, everything that we're chasing under the sun is pointless. We should be chasing the things above the sun. We should be chasing the glory. We should be chasing the kingdom of our Father. Having all of this means nothing, because just like a person who went out and was a mass murderer, they're going to die just like we are. Even though we didn't do the same things, even though we chose better choices than they did, we're all still going to die the same. So what does it matter? You can pursue having a nice car. You can pursue having the biggest house. You can pursue having a lot of money. You can pursue having, I don't know, a booming business. But at the end of the day, what is the point? What is the point? And that's what he's saying there, the relative value of wisdom. Because he's going to die just the same as someone who doesn't have wisdom. This is good. The emptiness of work. I hated all my work that I labored at under the sun because I must leave it to the one who comes after me. So all the work that he did, the person that's coming after him is going to reap the benefits. So he's like, well, I did all that work for nothing because I'm not even going to be able to enjoy it. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool. Wise as in making sure that those things stay the way they are, or a fool and have everything taken from him. Everything that Solomon worked so hard for, having that taken. Yet he will take over all my work that I labored at skillfully under the sun. This too is futile, because when that person dies, then the next person who takes their position is going to reap the benefits. So I began to give myself over, and I turned to cause my heart to despair concerning all my work that I had labored at under the sun. When there is a person whose work was done with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and he must give his portion to a person who has not worked for it, that would piss me off too. This too is futile and a great wrong. So why should I have to work so hard and not even get to reap the benefits of my hard work for someone else to come in and reap those benefits and not have to have work for them? I wholeheartedly understand this. For what does a person get with all his work and all his efforts that he labors at under the sun. For all his days are filled with grief, and his occupation is sorrowful. Even at night his mind does not rest. This too is futile, when your work takes up your thoughts, right? There is nothing better for a person than to eat, drink, and enjoy. There is no good in a person who eats and drinks and enjoys. His soul sees good. His work. I have seen that even this is from God's hand, because who can eat and who can enjoy life apart from him? For to the person who is pleasing in his sight, he gives wisdom, knowledge, and joy. Amen. When you live for the Lord, that's what he gives you. But to the sinner, he gives a task of gathering and accumulating in order to give to the one who is pleasing in God's sight. This too is futile and a pursuit of the wind. So the sinners working for everything but God's will. This was good. I'm going to have to go back and like really dive into this. But Solomon, God gave him some good wisdom. He gave him some good wisdom. And I don't know why people don't talk about Ecclesiastes, because I feel like if we have this mindset, we'd be better off. We wouldn't be so depressed. We wouldn't be so sad. We wouldn't be trying to chase after all these things that don't matter at the end of the day. They don't matter. Yeah, I'm going to have to go back through this. I am. I'm definitely going to have to go back through this and take even more notes. But this was, yeah, this was really good. I hope that y'all enjoyed this. The next live, I don't know when that will be, but we'll do chapters 3 and 4. Yeah, chapters 3 and 4. The mystery of time and the mystery of injustice and death. I know that's going to be good. The loneliness of wealth. I already know that's going to be good too. All right, I will see y'all later.